Today we are gonna name 10 signs that you might be dealing with a Venezuelan sex worker. And please take this video with a grain of salt. It's just fun facts and fun patterns that you see when you're dealing with a female that likes to, trade money for some special favors. So today, 10 signs that you're dealing with a Venezuelan sex worker. So let's start.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Before we start the video, I want to share a story that's something that happened many years ago, so story time. Well, I was having a coffee and then a beer with a group of friends, 2 male friends and 1 female friend, so we were a party of 4. And we just discussing with a coffee and then became a beer, so we stayed the whole afternoon. And on the next table were 3 females, 2 ones that are kind of cute and 1 that was, very beautiful, looked like an Instagram model, but also looked like, she might be, on the profession, to say the least. Well, but they were very cool. Actually, we invited these 3 girls to sit with us. So we're a party of 7 and start having some beers and just random conversation. We hang out pretty much. They were pretty cool. And I remember the phone of one of them rang, and actually they told us that they were waiting for some cousins. And the phone rang from one of the girls, the leader of them, and said, "Hey, my name is," I don't remember the name, "I'm dressed like this, and you're going to find me on this particular place," the place where we're having the coffee and the beers, so on. And I was very young back then, and I thought that why, if they are cousins, they cannot recognize among themselves. But one of the girls, the other girl, the one that wasn't speaking on the phone, says, "Before that we go to the yacht, first, I want them to take me to eat sushi first." And I thought that, those are very generous cousins. Well, right, half an hour later, the cousin arrived. It was a tall man. I remember he was on his mid-40s, something like that, and took the girls, and they paid their share of the bill. Of course, very cool girls, by the way. And they left, and of course, after that, my friends and I, okay, these girls are sex workers. They are escorts. There is no way around it. And it's a very funny story. They weren't dressed particularly like, workers, but that situation just reminded, and that happened many occasions throughout my life, my adult life here in Venezuela. By the way, I have to mention that when I mention sex worker, I include the traditional escorts, also content creators, spicy content creators, OnlyFans creators, and similar platforms. Also Instagram models, you see a lot of those. Also sugar babies. They just, instead of having a portfolio of clients, they just have a smaller portfolio of clients, usually 2 or 3. Some of them only have 1. Still, it is what it is. It's sex work. And any kind of women that basically trades their physical presence for, cash prices. So number 1 is the way they dress. And of course, this is pretty easy, pretty standard. Usually a sex worker, they dress more provocative, either on person or on their social media presence, of course. Usually wear these tiny, tiny outfits. Most of the time they don't wear underwear, or very tiny underwear, stuff like that. I have to say, some women that are not sex workers also dress as well because they like. I don't judge anybody. It is what it is. You do you. However, the first sign is the way how a female dress. And if they, let's say, they dress scarcely, most likely, or there is a good probability that she is a worker. Number 2 is pictures on yachts. Also very standard. And let me explain. And especially for the females, because some of them are going to get triggered. Going on a yacht is expensive. I'm not talking about buying the yacht or renting a yacht. Just going on the yacht, it has a cost. So you are not going to invite to a yacht a friend, someone who you just like. And it's like, Andrew Tate says all the time that women, a man, in order to be on a yacht, they have to work his entire life. He has to know how to leverage credit, networking, work hard, in order to himself or one of his peers buy a yacht on his 40s, or you are just a rich kid. Well, I've been invited to a couple of yachts. Well, but it doesn't happen every single day. Well, anyways, a woman just needs to answer a DM and put some lipstick and a bikini, and that's it. Very good. So when you see a woman on a yacht, especially on a picture that is not maybe with a husband or something like that, or a long-time boyfriend, usually is a worker. There is here some, and not in Venezuela, in most places all over the world, that usually some men, usually wealthy men, they hire these workers in order to have, mingle in a yacht and do their stuff on the yacht. So when you see a picture on social media of a female on a yacht, most likely she is a worker, unless, of course, it could be a family yacht, maybe their father is rich, or their husband or their long-time boyfriend, and I have to say long time, underscore that. Unless that's the case, most likely, another tell that she can be a worker. Number 3 is pictures on Los Roques en Canaima. And this is a very particular thing from Venezuela. You see, let's explain first Los Roques en Canaima in case you don't follow my content. Los Roques is like the Venezuelan version of the Maldives. It's expensive. It's not that expensive, but it's expensive to visit. It costs a couple $1,000 per couple. And also Canaima, where the Angel Falls are located, costs something around that. Most Venezuelans cannot afford to visit Los Roques. Only most of the time, the wealthy Venezuelans are the ones who visit Los Roques. Of course, you have middle-class people that are very particular on those locations, and they save like a year, and they visit those locations as well. Occasionally, middle-class families visit Los Roques, but it's on very rare occasions. Usually, wealthy families or wealthy men escorted by workers are the ones who visit Los Roques or Canaima. So when you see a female, let's say on her early 20s, on her mid-20s, a female with no marketable skills, and you see pictures, consistent pictures on either Los Roques or Canaima, and the time frame is very close, that's a 90% guarantee that she is a worker herself. Number 4 is what I call the female bipolar syndrome. Here's what happens. With females, usually, when they are, on bad steps, especially on their sentimental situations, they start acting bipolar. Most of the time that a female, and I'm talking every female, I'm not talking about just the workers, they act bipolar is because they are misbehaving sentimentally. This is for women that are not workers. So usually when they are breaking up with one boyfriend and going with another boyfriend, stuff like that. Okay, I'm talking, that's for the good Venezuelan girls. Now let's go with the workers. If you meet any random girl, and that's one of the frightening things about dating in Venezuela, is that there is a bunch of workers that you can see and they dress casually. I mean, at first glance, you cannot tell if they are workers or not. Maybe they are in college, and some of them, they do the work in order to, pay themselves into college and so on. You get the idea. Well, a female that acts extremely on this female bipolar syndrome that as I call, but it's something awful, and I've seen it a bunch of times. A couple of females that I dated, and everything was going great, for a couple of days, and starting, with this syndrome. And after that, I heard a few weeks after the divorce that she was a sex worker, and I've seen it a couple of times. Now, the performance of the syndrome from a good girl, a good Venezuelan girl, and a sex worker is different. It's something that you need experience, you need, more Venezuelan dating experience on your belt in order to get that, get that sixth sense in order to detect which is the good girl female bipolar syndrome and the worker bipolar syndrome is something that, requires a sixth sense, and you get that with experience. So instead of seeing dead people, I see living workers. Number 5 is the surrounding entourage. And here's what happens. Usually the workers don't work alone. And usually the roster is something like this. They have a gay guy that is her best friend. And by the way, I'm not saying that every Venezuelan girl that has a female gay guy is a worker, because even many good girls have, guy friends, the gay guys, friends, and very good. And actually, by the way, many of those gay guys are very cool as well to deal with. Actually, that can be an advantage here in the country. Well, anyways, usually these guys are either hairdressers, that's a cliche, makeup artists, they do something with clothing, or they are coaching, or they are beauty pageant coaches. We have a bunch of those guys. And because here in Venezuela, being on the beauty pageant industry is a big deal. So there's a lot of business, small business going on, that people, so that work. And also you have to be aware of that beauty pageants. You're going to see a lot of workers over there. Even the big ones like Miss Venezuela. Story for another day. Well, usually they have the gay. Also, they have friends, they dress, they don't like to use a lot of fabrics, you catch my drift. And also that can include, the let's say, the middleman and the pimp. Now, usually these guys can be, gay guys, or just guys that, are good, with this female psychology and so on. So you have to be very aware of the entourage of a Venezuelan female has. And also you have to include women that like to party a lot, go to the nightclubs a lot. That is something I'm going to develop a little bit later. But the entourage, beware of the entourage, is going to tell you a lot about if a girl is a worker or not. Number 6, she's very easy asking you for money. And I will say that I can draw the line on the sand between the good girls and the non-workers to the workers is by how easy a female can ask you for money. And she's going to look for any excuse. First, you have to pay for, for the deal, for the meals and the dates and so on. Okay, very good. That's something, old school in Venezuela is old school regarding that. So please go with that. Now, the good girls usually are going to offer to pay at least their share of the bill, sometimes, not all the times. Well, that's so that you can identify the good girls on that regard. Now, the workers, first, then she ain't never gonna even propose to pay for a bill. That's the first sign. Of course, many women that are not workers also do that. So that's not conclusive. But after that, she has any kind of emergency, or she wants to buy something, or she wants a treat, or whatever may be the case, she's going to ask you for money. And she's very easy, especially if you are just getting to know this particular broad, most likely she's a worker. Number 7, overall lifestyle. If you see on social media or just on random conversation that you see this girl has traveled abroad, going to Los Roques and Canaima, goes to a high-end restaurants a lot, and so on, and she has this lavishing lifestyle, despite being a girl, let's say, on their mid-20s or early 30s, with no marketable skills. She's not a surgeon, she's not a high-end lawyer or a high-end dentist, and so on, because also we have a bunch of workers that are actually lawyers and dentists. I'm going to leave that for later. Well, for a future video, I'm going to mention dentist and work, because that deserves a video of its own. Okay, now, what happens is that here in Venezuela, salaries are very bad. And very, very, very bad. I'm talking something around $100 per month, the average salary. And it's not easy to get a salary or beyond that. And a good salary, just a handful of people make that as a salary, are people making something like $300 or $400 per month. Very good. So if you see a female that travels to Europe, goes to Canaima Los Roques, nice restaurants, and so on, a lavish lifestyle, and there is no justification on how to cover it. Sometimes, we have rich kids, so of course we have rich girls that, of course, their daddy covers the bills. When you have some experience in Venezuela, you are going to know how to differentiate the rich girl that the worker with the lavishing lifestyle. You're going to learn it over time. However, if you see that lifestyle, most likely she's a worker. Number 8 is too many nightclubs, too many bars, and so on. So the workers have a very particular social lifestyle regarding nighttime. Nightclubs, bars, clubs, so on and so on and so on. Now, I have to say that a bunch of non-sex workers also like to go party a lot and so on, especially on their early 20s. So what happens is that, by the way, a girl who goes a lot, nightclubs and so on, regardless if she's a worker or not, she's not going to be a good girl on 99% of cases. Very good. Now, the difference is that the girls that are not sex workers, but they like to, to go clubbing a lot, what happens with them, usually they go with friends groups and each one pays a part of the bill, or the male counterparts pay the bill, or usually these girls, the non-sex workers, they go with their boyfriends, stuff like that. But when there is a bunch of females, solo females, and usually one of two guys, and usually the guy is older, on his late 30s, early 40s, could be higher than that. And you see, the club service, the bottle services on the fancy nightclubs and so on. Most likely, she is a worker. Number 9 is pictures in hotels. And this is, we are closing, at this moment, you're already going to find out if she is a worker or not. If on social media, she has a bunch of pictures on many hotels. And this is just beyond reasonable doubt. When a girl, of course, you can see a girl that went on vacation with her family and she visited, I don't know, she went to Margarita Island and she has a picture on the bathroom of on the hotel room. And of course, it's one or two and with a lot of time spread, the gap between the time frame is very important. So when you see, let's say, a girl that has a picture on a hotel in Margarita Island, and 6 months later, a picture on Caracas, and both times she were with family members, or presumably family members, pretty cool. She is just, family vacation. Now, if you see a girl with a bunch of pictures, especially on the mirror of the bathroom or the hotel room, and they have like 3, 4, 5, 6 of those and many more, you can see easily beyond reasonable doubt that she's a worker. And number 10, and I want to just even out these signs, is if she has the new iPhone or a recent iPhone model. Let me explain. In Venezuela, unlike, for instance, the United States or Western Europe, where you can get a new iPhone with your service provider, and you can pay a monthly fee, usually cheaper, in order to get the iPhone, the smartphone. In Venezuela, it's expensive. You have to pay it straight up in cash, and usually with a premium compared to a Western nation. So the new iPhone, I believe, in Venezuela costs something around $1,500. Remember, the salaries are pretty low here, so buying an iPhone is a major luxury for most Venezuelans. So the Venezuelan people that are going to have an iPhone, usually the rich kids. And like I said, the Venezuelan Joe Pesci, most of the time Venezuelan Joe Pesci has it. And of course, the oligarchs that are rich because they're close to the government and so on. But I have to mention the workers themselves, because usually a sugar daddy bought it, or maybe a rich kid, a rich guy handed over, or maybe she was dating an older guy, and this man, let's say he bought the new iPhone, and the previous model she handed over to the worker, and so on. And of course, the exception could be a rich girl, a woman that, of course, she's the daughter of an oligarch or a rich kid or someone, if she's the granddaughter of the guy who actually made the money, she can have an iPhone as well. And in some very particular cases, a middle class female, she save a lot, and maybe the boyfriend chip in with $500, maybe her father chip with another $500, and she come up with $500 herself. And those are cases that happen, but are very rare. Most of the time, if you see a female with the new a Venezuelan female here in Venezuela with the new iPhone, that's a red flag. Now, time for you. Any of these flags, of these signs, have you have experience with those, dating Venezuelan females, or maybe Colombian females, something like that, or Brazilian, and women of that nature? Please leave it on the comments below. And if you're a Venezuelan girl, please take it with a grain of salt.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again, and have a nice day.